Welcome back with a smiling face. Links to previous episodes are given in the video description, so don't forget to like, subscribe and share the video. Behind the closed doors. Last episode. Chapter 85. Crystal POV. I woke up with a smile on my face knowing that today is the day everything will change and hopefully go back to normal and all the packs will leave. I haven't seen Sandy at all yesterday. Knowing she must be with her mate, I didn't go looking for her. Instead I am waiting for her to shift, and knowing I only shifted at 19, I just hope she shifts sooner. I wasn't sure how I should feel, but happy is definitely one of them. I removed myself from Julian's and Zanian's arms and took a shower. I haven't told them about the conversation I had with Amber and that I know who is behind the attacks. They will find out today as well as everyone else. After my shower I got dressed in a red gown and did a little extra effort seeing as everyone is leaving and it would be my last day to play dress up. Where are you going? I heard Zanian ask, sleepiness evident in his voice. I turned around and smiled. We have the meeting today. It's Monday morning. Zanian groaned and fell back on the bed, waking Julian, who looks like a cute wild cat with his hair all over the place and his eyes still half closed. Good morning, I said and walked over to Julian and pecked his lips. I did the same with Zanian and said, you have 20 minutes to get ready or you'll be late. I said and left the room. I heard giggles coming from the girls' room and stuck my head in. I saw them playing on the Good Morning My Babies, I said and walked into the room. Hazel and Isabella jumped up and hugged my legs. You look so pretty, mommy, Isabella said and smiled up at me. I bent down and said, and you look like a real princess in tour dress. Isabella giggled, but Hazel had a scowl on her face. What's wrong, honey? I asked, picking her up. I want to be strong and not wear dresses, she said, and I smiled. Honey, you are still too young. We said you can start training when you are 5. I said, holding my hand up showing her 5 fingers. She smiled a bright smile and kissed my cheek. For a 3-year-old, Hazel is very clever and too advanced for her age. I have no doubt that she will one day be our best warrior. I took the girls by the hands and walked out with them. As we went down the stairs on the 2nd floor, Natasha and Roland walked behind me. Good morning, Roland said with a distant voice. Natasha didn't even bother greeting, which is fine because they will be leaving today. I came to a stop at the last step, causing Natasha to bump into my back. I growled lowly and she immediately apologized. I looked out the front door and saw a crowd gathering. I picked Hazel and Isabella up, making my way outside. I set them down on the grass and told them to wait there. As I got closer to the crowd, I heard groans and heavy breathing like someone is fighting. I pushed past everyone and gasped when I saw who was fighting. I saw Sandy's mate, blood running from his nose and eye, and just before the other boy could lay a punch, I released my aura and growled. The fight stopped and everyone lowered their heads. I saw Sandy running towards her mate, kneeling beside him with tears running down her face. Everyone is dismissed except you 3, I said, looking at Sandy and them. When everyone disappeared, I walked closer. What is going on? I asked Sandy. I can explain, Sandy's mate said, and I realized I don't even know his name. He looked up at me, and for a wolf he is really skinny and pale. Sandy and I were just walking around talking when Brian came up and started insulting her, so I defended her. I looked at Sandy and she lowered her head. I looked at Brian and asked, so what did you have to say to my daughter? I asked and saw him swallow. Sandy interrupted and said, he kept making fun of Liam for being weak and not deserving of a princess even if she is a fake on, and then he went on about how I should be with a man and not a boy. Sandy said, and I growled at Brian. He lowered his head immediately. What pack are you from? I asked Brian. The Blue River Pack, he said, and my blood boiled. That pack will deal with consequences today. I looked at them and said, Sandy, take Liam to the hospital. Brian, you follow me. I turned around and walked away. Everyone was seated in the dining hall together with Zanian and Julian. Breakfast hasn't been served yet, so I closed the doors and dismissed the staff. Zanian and Julian looked at me confused. Good morning, everyone. Let's get this over with, shall we? Something has been brought to our attention recently and I do not agree with what is happening. One of the packs in this room is attacking smaller packs, and by doing this they associate themselves with rogues. So I will ask once only, who is attacking smaller packs? I asked, looking around the room at everyone staring at me wide eyes. I caught sight of Amber and looked directly at Arwen. Everyone looked at each other but no one spoke up. Who does he belong to? I asked, pointing at Brian, knowing full well what pack he comes from. Amber stood up and said, he is the beta son of Blue River Pack. Okay, so we'll start with the Blue River Pack, I said, and walked over to where Arwen is sitting. His whole body is stiff and he went pale. You see, what makes me different from any other queen is I have a gift that allows me to see memories, so I will touch each and every alpha in this room unless one of you confesses. Many sentences in this chapter have been removed because you are not reading them on JOBNIB. C-O-M. I said, walking around the table standing directly behind Arwen. I laid my hand on his shoulder and saw everything. All the crimes he has committed and the way he treats his mate and the attacks he arranged by paying the rogues in cash. I removed my hand from his shoulder and he jumped to his feet ready to cut me with a silver knife. I dodged the knife and Zanian and Julian was by my side in a split second. I grabbed Arwen by the throat and forced him to his knees. As if from today the Blue River Pack will be banished. Arwen, you will spend some time in the royal prison until punishment will be decided. Trying to kill or harm your queen is punishable by death. The rest of the pack will be sent to other pack and none will be allowed on kingdom grounds without an invitation or a summons. I looked down at Amber and saw the sadness behind her eyes. I called Zane and Kyle to take Arwen away. When he left, Amber looked at me with a small sad smile upon her face. Come see me after breakfast, I told her with a smile on my face. I looked at Brian and said, I should make you rogue for what you have done and the way you have disrespected us, but I won't. Instead I strip you of your title and you will be an Omega. I watched as he paled and I walked off to enjoy my breakfast. Everyone was silent after that and Zanian just kept smiling at me. Brian had to move tables to the Omega table and even he kept glaring at me. After breakfast most of the packs left, not wanting to stay longer than needed. I sent Kyle and Zane with Amber to make sure that the Blue River pack gets divided and nothing is left of that pack. They have instructions to bring Amber back with them, as for she will stay here until she is ready to leave, and if she doesn't want to she can stay. She won't reject Arwen because of the baby, and I won't kill him. It might kill both Amber and her baby, so I will wait until she is ready. Julian POV: having a queen like Crystal is every king's dream. After seeing her this morning, she deserves the queen title more than anyone I have ever met. Zanian and I have been planning this for a long time now, and we finally got a call that we can pick up the rings, and that is where we are going to now. We had to lie to Crystal to get away from her, so we said, Zanian has to go into the office to sign some papers. Zanian and I left as soon as the last alpha left. We said goodbye and we left. So how are we going to do this? I asked, looking at Zanian. Crystal likes family and she would want everyone to be a part of the first biggest time in her life. So I was thinking, remember that party we planned? I looked at Zanian with a smile on my face, knowing exactly what we will do. We can just rearrange the party and turn it into an engagement party, I said, and Zanian nodded his head. After about half an hour we arrived at the jewelry store where the rings have been sent to. I bought the diamond gold band and Zainian bought the diamond silver band. We chose these 2 cents because they fit into each other, that way it's one ring when it goes onto her finger. We got out of the car and I get even more disgusted with the human girls who stare at us openly without any shame, even those hanging off the arms of their men or boyfriends. We walked into the jewelry store and was greeted by a young female, and for once she didn't look at us with lust in her eyes and her smile was genuine and not seductive. I immediately felt at ease and smiled back at her. "We are here to pick up a package," Zainian said, removing his card from his pocket, and I did the same. The girl dipped behind the counter, removing 2 ring boxes. She set them down and her smile widened. "They must be very lucky girls," the girl said, and we just nodded our heads. I picked up the white box and opened it. The ring is even more beautiful in real life than it was in the picture. The diamond is not too big and the ring makes a curve where Zainian's ring will fit in. I showed him the ring and he showed me his, and they are perfect. "Do you have any other color ring boxes?" Zainian asked, and the girl nodded and left. She came back with a small drawer with different color ring boxes. Zainian picked one up with white and purple and I took the white one. We changed the rings into the new boxes and gave the other 2 back. We paid for the rings and left the store with bright smiles on our faces. "Where to now?" I asked, putting the ring in my jacket pocket. "Now we have some planning to do and I have just the person," Zainian said as we walked to the car. He took out his phone and dialed a number. A woman answered the phone. "Hello Nelly, I need your help," Zainian said, starting the car. "With?" the woman asked. "I need you to get a team together and help us plan a secret engagement party. We will give you all the details and anything will be taken care of," Zainian said, pulling out the parking lot. "And when do you want this to happen?" Nelly asked. "By Wednesday," Zainian said, looking at me. "Okay, I will come tomorrow and see what I can do and I will get everything ready for Wednesday. I suggest you book into a hotel or something. We don't want her to get suspicious," Nelly said, and Damien smiled. They said goodbye and we drove back home. This time next year Crystal will be our wife for life. Ch 86. Crystal POV. Zainian and Julian left and here I am on a Monday afternoon feeling as though I have flu. My nose is blocked and my head feels like it's going to burst. Dalia is very concerned and keeps telling me to go to the doctor, but I don't want to because wolves don't get sick, so why am I sick? I just want to crawl into bed and sleep for a while. I thought and got interrupted by my stomach turning and I ran for the bathroom. I threw up for what felt like forever. I actually fell asleep next to the toilet because every time I try and get up my stomach has other ideas. I felt 2 arms picking me up and carrying me out of the bathroom. When I felt the soft bed beneath me, I opened my eyes and stared into Julian's concerned ones. I tried sitting up but he pushed me back down. "What's wrong?" Julian asked, sitting on the bed next to me. "I think I ate something that doesn't agree with me," I said, taking his hand and sighed at the coolness of it. I pressed his hand against my forehead, feeling as though I was dumped into a very hot bath. "Have you been to the doctor?" Zainian asked, coming to stand beside me. I shook my head no, and that was a mistake. I jumped off the bed, running for the bathroom again. When I was done, I flushed and brushed my teeth and walked back into the room. "Come, let's go," Julian said and picked me up bridal style. "Can Delian go with me?" I asked and explained. "She has been trying to get me to the hospital the whole day, and if I go with you guys she will feel like she isn't important," I said, and Zainian nodded his head because he knows how she can get. Julian set me down and Zainian linked Dalia. A few minutes later she barged in and said, "Finally." She put my arm around her shoulder and we walked to the hospital like that. Luckily the hospital isn't that far, just a few meters away from the castle, so walking wasn't the problem was keeping myself from throwing up on the grass. When we walked into the hospital I grabbed the first bin I saw and I couldn't keep it in anymore. "What is wrong?" I heard Jeff ask. Delilah left me and walked into the corner. I can't even concentrate on what she is saying. I wiped my mouth and Jeff walked up to me smiling. He picked me up bridal style and walked off into a private room. Delilah came in just as Jeff set me down with a huge smile on her face. "Why are you smiling?" I asked, looking at her confused. "I heard a machine being switched on, and look at what Jeff is doing." "Lift your shirt for me please," Jeff asked, and I gasped. How did I never think of the possibility of being pregnant? I did as he asked and glared at Delilah. "You suspected or you knew?" I asked. "I knew," she said, shrugging her shoulders. "How?" I asked, curious because not even I knew. "The mood swings, the tiredness, oh," Delilah said as if it's the most normal thing in the world. I watched as Jeff spread the gel and moved the sonar machine around my stomach. I stopped for a second and looked at the screen, then at me. "See that?" he asked, pointing towards the screen. I concentrated and saw it's moving. "That right there is a tiny heartbeat," Jeff said, and tears welled in my eyes. "I'm pregnant again," I thought, and then the realization hit me. "I'm pregnant," I shouted, looking at Delilah. "Yes you are," she said, coming closer, laying her hand on my shoulder. "Can we hide this? I want to surprise the guys," I asked, looking at Jeff. "Sure, I'll tell them you just are some bad cheese or something," Jeff said, and wiped the gel off and switching off the machines. I walked back with Delilah and found Zanian and Julian waiting for us with Hazel and Isabella sitting by their feet. "And?" Zanian and Julian asked, jumping to their feet. "Jeff said she just ate some bad cheese or something that doesn't agree with her body," Delilah said. My stomach took a turn and I covered my mouth with my hand. Julian picked me up bridal style and used his vampire speed to taking me to our room and sitting me by the toilet. He held my hair back with one hand and rubbed small circles with the other. When I was done, Julian prepared a bath for me. As I got in, Zanian came in smiling. "Do you think you will feel better tomorrow?" Zanian asked, looking between me and Julian. "Yes," Jeff said, "I should feel better by tomorrow." I lied. "Good, because we are going on a 2-day vacation," Zanian said, and started to undress, and so did Julian. "The bath is big enough to seat 4 people and still have space, so I don't mind sharing with them, at least they don't crowd me." "Where are we going?" I asked, feeling a bit better, leaning into Zanian's chest, who is sitting behind me, and Julian sat with his back against the side of the tub with my legs draped over his. "Wherever you want," Zanian said, and I thought about it. "Can we go to Tyler?" I asked, hearing Zanian chuckle. "Yes, we can go, but we have to be back Wednesday evening because we have a meeting with Derek and them to decide what to do with Arwen," Zanian said, and I groaned. Zane said they should be done there by tomorrow and Amber is coming back with them. After our bath we got dressed. Zanian and Julian went to speak to Andre and Llewellyn about us leaving, and they will be in charge until Zane and Kyle comes back. When they came up, I already packed a small bag with our clothes, and I just hope I can make it without getting sick on the other side. Zanian took the bag and I took their hands, and I teleport us to Tyler's territory in Paris. I teleport us just outside the border, for if I get sick then no one would see me. And I did get sick. When I was sure I had nothing left, I piped my mouth with a tissue Zanian was holding, and we walked into the territory, being greeted by many wolves bowing. Tyler came out and threw his arms around me. "I wouldn't spin her if I were you," Julian warned just before he could pick me up. Tyler looked down at me and said, "You don't look so good." I ate something bad and I came to rest. I said, feeling exhausted. Tyler led us inside and showed us to a room. Chris brought coffee and snacks and joined me on the bed. He chased everyone out and said, "I will take care of my queen." And they all left without arguing. Chris joined me on the bed and pulled me into his arms. I laid my head on his chest and just then my stomach took a turn. I jumped off the bed and ran for the bathroom. I haven't even thrown up this much when was pregnant with the twins. I groaned and got up from the floor. I washed my face and brushed my teeth and joined Chris on the bed again. "What's wrong?" he asked, looking concerned. I shushed him, pointing at my ears and the door. "I ate something that doesn't agree with my system. Jeff said it might be bad cheese," I said, smiling. I took out my phone and typed, "Block your mind link and don't shout." He looked at me confused and nodded his head. "I'm pregnant," I typed and showed it to him. He threw his face into the pillows and squealed like a girl. When he was done with his little fit of excitement, I typed, "They don't know yet." And I showed it to him. "I will take good care of you," Chris said and got off the bed, jumping up and down. I couldn't help but smile at his reaction and I felt happy. I rubbed my still flat stomach and smiled. Later that evening I felt better, so I decided to join the boys for dinner and prayed that Chris can keep his mouth shut and his mind blocked. Tyler made his favorite that happened to mine as well, and we all enjoyed a plate of roast chicken, baked potatoes and rice with vegetables. We ate and cleaned up, then watched movies and talked until after 3 in the morning. I couldn't keep my eyes open anymore and drifted off to sleep. I woke up to the feeling of being carried and opened my eyes. Julian looked down at me, kissing my forehead and laying me on the bed where Zanian was already waiting. I crawled closer to him and Julian got in behind me. I fell asleep almost immediately. Zanian POV: I am the happiest I have ever been in my life, and Wednesday will be the last step towards the final step. I have no doubt that she will say yes. I woke up Tuesday morning and Crystal wasn't in bed, instead I was cuddling with Julian. I pulled my arm back and an amused smile crossed my face. Don't get me wrong, I have no problem with Julian, it's just that I prefer cuddling a female instead of a male. Julian's eyes snapped open and he jumped off the bed, a low growl rumbling from his chest. I burst out laughing, knowing Crystal had something to do with this because I have never cuddled Julian before. "This is not funny," Julian said, glaring at me. "It kind of is when you look at who we are mated to," I said, getting up. Julian couldn't keep a straight face anymore and started laughing with me. We got dressed and made our way to the kitchen where we heard laughter. "Good morning," I said and kissed Crystal's temple. "Good morning to you guys. Tell me, how did you sleep?" Crystal asked, batting her lashes at us. I narrowed my eyes at her and said, "Julian is strangely very comfortable to hold, so I think from now on he should sleep in the middle." I watched as her smile faded and her mouth dropped open and Julian was smiling. "So where is the photo?" I asked, crossing my arms over my chest. "What photo?" Julian asked, looking between Crystal and me. "Ask her to show you, then you will see what I'm talking about," I said and walked over to the fridge and grabbed a bottle of water. Crystal took her phone out and showed Julian the photo, which caused him to growl at her and everyone burst out laughing. "This is not funny," Julian said, pouting like a small child. The rest of the day went by fast and quiet. Crystal was feeling better, so she got her appetite back and was eating like she hasn't eaten in years. Everything she can get her hands on she eats, and now she is eating chocolate ice cream and not even sharing with anyone. Chris has just been sitting there smiling like he knows something we don't. CH87. Crystal POV: Are you guys done? It's almost evening and you said we have a meeting to get to, I asked, walking into the room just as Zanian picked up out bag, smiling at me. "We are all done," Julian said and walked past me. I need a favor, I need you to teleport us into our room. We are already late and we want to at least look presentable. Zanian asked and I rolled my eyes at him, nodding my head. I had so much fun with Chris and Tyler that it's almost sad to leave them. I walked into the kitchen and Tyler walked up to me with a bag in his hand. You leaving? I asked. He rolled his eyes and said, yes, in fact we are. Chris and I are coming with you. Tyler said and my smile grew on my face. You had your vacation and now we will have ours. Chris said, winking at me. I let out a sigh and we all joined hands and I teleported us into our room at the palace. Chris and Tyler stared in awe and complimented the colors. Can I pick out your dress for the meeting? Chris asked, putting his hands together, giving me puppy dog eyes. Yes, but I have a say too. I said, and he pulled me away from Zanian and Julian, who just stood there smiling. They left the room to show Tyler where they would be sleeping, but they didn't come back. I took a shower and when I was done Chris attacked me with dressed and makeup and my hair. Don't you think this is too much for a meeting? I asked, huffing at him as he curled my hair, leaving it to fall down my back in waves. You are a queen, there is no such thing as too much. Chris said with a huff. We finally decided on a peach color dress with a tight bodice with patterns on and a slit from the ankle to mid-thigh after the hair and makeup was done. Chris dove back into my closet in searching for the perfect pair of shoes and came out holding a pair of peach heels. Where is Zanian and Julian? I asked and Chris smiled at me. They are with Tyler, of course. He said and helped me put the shoes on. At least the sickness has stopped and I feel better except for nausea every now and then, but I'm not throwing up anymore. It was close to 7 when we were finally done. Zanian and Julian came striding into the room and stopped when they saw me. Their mouths fell open and it looks like their eyes might pop out. Chris cleared his throat and said, "Did you bring it?" They guys recovered and Julian walked up to me smiling very brightly. "We lied, there is no meeting, we have a surprise for you," Julian said, and Zanian stood behind me. "I'm going to blindfold you and carry you as to not ruin the surprise," Zanian said, and he tied a piece of cloth over my eyes and picked me up. I let out a squeal at the sudden movement and grabbed his shoulders. "Sorry," Zanian whispered and started walking. "They think they are going to surprise me, they will have just as big of a surprise," I though and smiled. We were walking down the stairs when I heard talking and laughter. I smelled food and a lot of it, and also booze. The party. How can I forget the party that I wanted us to have? Zanian set me down and removed the blindfold. "Okay, open your eyes," Zanian said, and I gasped at the sight. The whole backyard is covered in fairy lights and balloons, and even the swimming pool has been decorated with roses and candles floating. Everyone was wearing formal clothes instead of fun clothes. "What is this?" I asked in amazement. "We decided to throw you that party just a bit more formal and with more class," Zanian said. "OMG, you look beautiful," Dalia said and hugged me. "And so do you, D," I said, letting go of her. I talked with a few members and refused to drink anything, saying I'm still not feeling too well. The food, on the other hand, it's like they just kept calling and I finally gave up, and that is where I am now, standing in front of the food and snacks. Julian and Zanian stood on either side of me and pulled me away from the food and up the makeshift stage. "We have something to ask our beautiful mate," Julian said, and they both turned to me, getting down on their knees. I gasped and put my hand over my mouth as tears threatened to spill over. I never thought that I would ever love someone this much and still love her more every day. If someone told me I would be wrapped around a woman's finger 100 years ago, I would have laughed in their faces, but when I met you everything changed, and it will keep changing, and I will never want it to stop changing. Crystalia vulpus stone, will you do me the honor and marry me? Julian asked, looking up at me with a bright smile. Yes, 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 to both of you. I said, not being able to wait any longer. Tears fell from my eyes as I watched as they slipped the rings on my finger, and they fit perfectly, the one gold and the one silver. I kissed Julian first and then Zanian, hugging them both as the tears flow from my eyes. I turned around as everyone started howling and clapping, congratulating us. I turned to Zanian and Julian and smiled through the tears. I went and stood in front of them and said, I have a surprise of my own. I looked over at Delia, who is standing with Tyler and Chris, and they all waiting. I looked back at my guys, who is looking at me with anticipation. I'm pregnant, I said, and I don't think they caught on because they didn't react, so I look at them and put my hand over my stomach and said, I am pregnant. I watched as their smile fade and confusion setting in. How hard can this be? I wondered when they were staring at me like I have grown 3 heads. I picked their hands up and put it on my stomach and said for the last time, I am pregnant. The whole crowd came out of their shock and started howling and clapping once again. Zanian and Julian was just staring at me with big eyes and open mouths. They looked at each other and they both nearly squeezed the life out of me. After the party, everyone shifted and went for a pack run except me, Sandy and Liam. I took the opportunity to get to know Liam, and what I found I didn't like very much. He was made an Omega when his father and mother died, where he should have been the Beta. They stopped his training and therefore he lost all his muscle and in return became pale and skinny. I found that he is 18 years old and haven't shifted yet due to his weak human form. So we came up with a plan to help him, and the training will be brutal, but it will definitely help him in more ways than one. So you are really pregnant? Sandy asked, looking at me with longing in her eyes. I am, and you will not have a baby until you are at least 18, so we'll have plenty of practice with this one. I said, and saw both Sandy and Liam blush like the 2 kids they are. Do you know whose it is? Sandy asked, more out of curiosity than judgment. I think they belong to Julian, I said, and Sandy's eyes went wide. They? Sandy and Liam both shouted. I shushed them before anyone can hear and said, yes, I am carrying twins. Ch88. Crystal POV. Sandy and I waited for the pack to return as her mate went for a walk to give us some time alone. How does it work? Sandy asked with red cheeks. How does what work? I asked, playing dumb. Having 2 mates? Sandy asked, looking away from me. I took a minute and thought about it and eventually just told her that, it's like nothing I can describe because I never thought of having 2 mates and I have never met anyone with 2 mates, but what I can tell you is that no one is above the other and we are all equal. I said, and saw a soft smile on Sandy's lips. How can you be so sure that the babies are Julian's? Sandy asked with pure interest. Because I already have Zanian's babies and I didn't get as sick as I was, and the girls grew much faster than these ones, because according to Jeff I am already 2 months pregnant and I haven't even started showing yet, whereas with Zanian I was showing within the first 2 weeks. I said, and Sandy smiled. I'm gonna have more siblings. Sandy said and jumped to her feet just as Zanian came out from behind a tree with everyone following behind him. They were all in their human forms with basketball shorts on. Zanian walked over to us and kissed me passionately. Gross guys, get a room. Sandy said and walked off, leaving us behind. Zanian put his hands on my stomach and looked up at me. He or she Julian's, he said, and rubbed small circles on my belly. How do you know? I asked, looking at him surprised. The heartbeat is slower than a wolf's. Zanian said and looked at me. I smiled and asked, how many do you hear? Zanian looked at me for a second before his face scrunched up in concentration and said, there is 2. He burst out laughing just when Julian rounded the corner. He looked at Zanian funny and then at me. Well, good luck. Zanian said, patting him on the back. Julian looked at him confused and watched him just walk off. What was that about? Julian asked, sitting beside me and putting me on his lap. The babies are yours, I said, and watched his smile grow before the realization sunk in and his smile fell and his eyes went wide. He sat there staring at me in horror, not even managing to form a proper sentence. They, he asked, eventually, looking like a deer caught in headlights. I leaned in and pecked his nose, telling him that everything will be fine and we got this. Julian and I eventually made it up to the room and saw Zanian already showered and is now spread out on the bed like a starfish. I took a shower and Julian took a shower and we met each other back in the room. I woke Zanian by accident, climbing over him and snuggled up in the middle. I felt 2 pairs of arms around me and 2 heads buried in my neck. Good night, my loves, I said, and fell into a peaceful sleep. I have never dreamt so many things in one night, and it's like I could see the future, well, at least the one we are going to build. Julian POV, I'm gonna be a dad, me. I nearly jumped out of my skin when Crystal told me just before the fear settled in. I have no idea how to be a dad. I lay watching Crystal and Zanian sleep and I wish I could freeze time and stay like this forever. No danger, no threats, and no interference. Just us in the bed in this room forever. My mind has been drifting a lot lately to the time I was captured and held prisoner. Everything Helena said was true and I'm the reason her mate died, but why would she come after me now? And what does Tracy's father want with me? I haven't even been living by his rules since I'm supposed to be dead, and my sister that betrayed me and called my mother, why would she do that? My mind kept wandering and eventually I fell asleep thinking I will find out what everyone wants with me without involving Crystal and Zanian for as long as I can. I woke up the next morning feeling butterfly kisses all over my face and sparks followed. I opened my eyes and looked at Crystal smiling at me. Good morning, Crystal said, capturing my lips. I put my hand behind her head and held her in place, deepening the kiss. We pulled away, gasping for air as a smile stretched across her face. I looked at her, lifting myself onto my elbows, and asked, "You seem very happy this morning. Is something happening?" Crystal looked at me and said, "We are starting to build today, or have you forgotten?" she asked with a pout, and for a second she looks like a young innocent girl being refused candy. "Can't we stay here a little bit longer?" I asked, pulling her so that she is lying beneath me. I looked over and saw Zanian isn't in bed and raised a brow. "He's dealing with Derek and them," Crystal said, and I let out a groan. I forgot all about Arwen and the crimes he has committed. I got off the bed and went to take a shower. Afterwards I got dressed and left the room. I found Crystal in the girls' room surrounded by bunnies and laughter. I said good morning to them and the bunnies and walked off to find Zanian. "I want him executed because he tried to kill Crystal," I heard Zanian say as I walk into his office. Everyone turned and stared at me, including Zanian. I took a seat and said, "You cannot kill him because he has marked and made it amber. If you kill him it will kill the baby," I said, and Zanian groaned, seeming to forget the most important thing. "What if we ask her to reject him? That way her bond will be severed and the baby will be safe," Crystal said, walking. "What do you mean?" Derek asked. "Well, when the female rejects the male it's different because the bond severs immediately, leaving no emotional connection, and the mark will fade over time," Crystal said, taking a seat next to me, looking around the table. "And how do you know this?" Vivian asked. "Because I've done it to Zanian. The only difference is I came back before the mark was completely gone," Crystal said, making Zanian growl at the memory, I presume. "See if she will," Zanian said, and Crystal left again. Crystal POV. I make my way outside in searching for Amber, and eventually I found her sitting under the tree with Delia. "Amber, can I have a work with you please?" I asked with a smile on my face, not wanting her to panic. I helped her stand and we walked off back to the office. What is going on? Amber asked as soon as I closed the door behind us. Have a seat, I said and motioned towards a chair. Amber looked between us, fear evident on her face. Don't be afraid, Amber, we just want to ask you something, I said and leaned closer to her. You have to be completely honest, okay? I said and she nodded her head. Do you still love Arwen? I asked and her head snapped up. She looked at me with hatred evident in her eyes. No, I do not, I will never love again, Amber said, and I could feel the anger rolling off her. Okay, Arwen is on death row and the only reason he hasn't been killed yet is because of you, I said and saw the confusion in her eyes and said, if we kill him while he is still your mate it might kill the baby and you, I said, and her hands went to her stomach protectively. Tears sprung to her eyes and I said, there is a way for you and the baby to come out of this unharmed, but you will have to reject Arwen. It will hurt because he is your mate, but that is all. It will be a bad heartbreak which you will recover from, I said and saw hope behind her eyes. I will do anything, but I never want to see him again, Amber said and closed her eyes. I, Amber Gold, reject you, former Alpha Arwen Blade, as my mate, Amber said and let out a painful scream as the bond broke. She hunched over, clutching her heart as tears streamed down her face. It burns, she yelled, her hand going to her neck. I watched as the mark became blood red as it was made fresh. The mark is fading, I said and put my hand on her shoulder trying to comfort her. I let her cry until she had no tears left while Julian, Zanian and all the rest made their way to the dungeon to do what has to be done. You will be okay, Amber, and your son will be what you raise him to be, I said, and Amber looked up at me through red eyes. I can never thank you enough, Amber said and threw her arms around me in a crushing hug. The mark will be gone in a few days and you need plenty of rest. Your body will feel a bit weak as you wolf recovers, I said and helped her up from the chair, linking Delia to come to the office. Delia came in, taking in the state of Amber, and decided not to ask any questions. Please take her to her room and stay with her for a while, she will need all the support she can get, I said and watched as they walk off. Zanian and Julian came back saying, it is done. And they walked past me up to the room, probably to have a shower, seeing that they are covered in blood. No doubt they killed him for almost killing me. They are possessive and protective alpha males. Ch 89. Sandy POV. Ever since I found Liam, my life feels complete. I have watched every mate since I became old enough to understand what a mate means, and I wished for a mate to treat me the way Zanian and Julian treats Crystal. They have such love for each other that I sometimes wonder if they aren't living in a fairy tale, and then I found my own piece of heaven on earth. There you are, I heard Liam say as he made himself comfortable behind me, pulling me against his chest. What are you thinking about? Liam asked, burying his nose in my neck. Liam has been getting special training since he has beta blood but was forced into omega submission, so he is starting to get back his muscles and abs, which are already starting to show, and he isn't as pale as he once was. The sun and food is doing him good. I was just thinking of the life I dreamt about having and the one I have now, I said, and his arms tightened around me. I have everything I ever wanted. I have a family that accepts me, siblings, and I have my mate, which I have longed for the most, I said and leaned into his chest. When I turned 16 I found my mate. She used to be my childhood best friend but stopped talking to me when I became an Omega. She took one look at me and rejected me on the spot, and that night she mated with someone else, and never in my life have I ever experienced that amount of pain. Many sentences in this chapter have been removed because you are not reading them on JOBNIB. I died and I was emotionally dead for 2 years, and if it wasn't for me being the Alpha's personal slave I would have never met you, and even before you knew you are my mate I knew because I smelled you the second I walked into the kingdom, but I was afraid that you would reject me and I don't think I would have survived another rejection so I didn't say anything. I didn't know it was your birthday until that Saturday so I kept a distance and hoped you wouldn't notice, but how wrong was I? When I caught your scent coming closer I was ready to run, but something about the way you moved kept me rooted to the spot and when you kissed me, my soul left my body and came back shooting a million sparks through my body. I listened to his story and I couldn't help the tear that rolled down my cheek for the pain he has suffered and all he went through. I sniffed and Liam turned me so I could face him. Why are you crying? Liam asked and wiped a tear from my cheek. It's unfair how the good ones always gets hurt and treated badly, I mean what have we done to deserve the hand we are dealt? I asked throwing my hands in the air. Have you ever thought about it differently like me? I for one believe that the moon goddess put us in those situations to make us strong because we will one day need to be warriors and not scared children. Liam said and I could see the seriousness in his eyes as he spoke, he truly believes what he is saying and that we are meant for something bigger I mean there is Crystal she survived death and now she is queen. Liam and I sat in each other's embrace for what felt like a second before he got called back to training and Zainian was calling me. We got up and walked back together to where we had to go our different ways. Liam leaned in and kissed my cheek like the gentleman he is. Crystal me to ask you she needs help. Zainian said standing by the front door looking tired. I chuckled and walked past him. Crystal has been giving them a hard time with the pregnancy hormones and I constantly see them running out the house or pulling their hair in frustration. As I walk up the stairs I can hear Julian trying to tell Crystal to relax, but she just keeps going on about the pants not fitting. I stood in front of the door and took a deep breath. Before I could knock the door swung open and Julian pulled me in by my arm. I took in the mess in front of me and Crystal standing in a jeans that looks like they're gonna tear any second. Sandy is here maybe she can get it right where I can't. Julian said and looked at me pleadingly. I tried not to laugh but I couldn't keep it in anymore. Crystal is 4 months pregnant and her stomach is as big as a human woman who is 9 months pregnant. I got this. I told Julian and he left closing the door behind him. What are you trying to do, squash the babies? I asked with my hands on my hips. None of my clothes are fitting. Crystal whined looking at her stomach and said, and I can't even see my feet. I looked at her for a second and just shook my head. How about we pick something else? I asked walking over to her closet. I don't have anything else. She said walking in behind me. It took me about 40 minutes and I eventually made it through her whole closet and true she doesn't have anything. I walked out and walked into the Zainian and Julian's closet. I don't want to wear their clothes. Crystal said standing behind me with her arms folded. It's either there or walking. You walking will cause Zainian and Julian to rip every male apart who even looks at you and they might lock you up until you gave birth and fit into clothes again. I said trying to sound as serious as I possibly can. Crystal looked at me and finally just nodded her head. Okay fine, but only for today. Tomorrow I'm going shopping and you are coming with me. Crystal said and I smiled saying, 2 days it is then. 2 days of what? Crystal asked looking at me confused. Well you cannot go out shopping now can you? I asked with a raised brow and folded arms. I finally got a shirt and pants Crystal agreed to and we left the room. When Zainian saw us he let out a relieved sigh and smiled a thankful smile my way. I returned his smile and excused myself to go have lunch. Liam came in sweat dripping from his body looking as though he just had a shower. I stared at him and unconsciously licked my lips causing his to darken and he gave me a smirk. He walked up to me and without saying anything crushed his lips to mine in a hot needy kiss. Please get a room there are kids here. I heard Maggie say as she walked past us with a smirk on her face. Liam and I broke apart smiling and walking into the dining hall together where everything has been set up for lunch. I swear Maggie and Martha never stop cooking. We all had lunch and Julian was happy that Crystal stopped fighting about clothes. In fact, they were all smiling now and making jokes. I looked over at Liam, who is already smiling at me. I formed a plan in my head and I've decided that I want Liam to mark me. He hasn't yet because he was afraid that I wouldn't want him to, but I want him to. After lunch I ran into the room and took a shower before him so that I can plan everything while he is showering. I look at the picnic I set up for us as the sun dips behind the trees, leaving only a dim light. I made sure everything is perfect. I walked back to the house and found Liam waiting on the stairs with a small smile on his face. "Where have you been?" he asked and pulled me into a hug. "I have a surprise for you," I said, watching his eyes lit up. "And what is that?" he asked, holding me by the waist looking into my eyes. "I will show you, but you have to close your eyes," I said and took his hand, leading him out of the house. "We're almost there," I said, looking at him, making sure his eyes are closed. "Where are we going?" Liam asked. "Okay, open your eyes," I said and sat down on the blanket, watching his expression change from surprise to love. We ate cheese and wine and obviously chocolate-covered strawberries because a date wouldn't be one without those. "This is amazing, thank you, Sandy," Liam said and leaned closer to me. I got up and straddled him, crushing my lips to his, purring every emotion into the kiss, showing him everything I'm about to say. When my lungs started screaming, I pulled away from him and said, "I want you to mark me." I watched his expression light up like I have just given him the most amazing gift, which I guess I have. "Are you sure?" he asked, tracing my cheek with his finger down my neck, moving my hair out of the way, exposing my neck. "Yes, I am," I said and kissed him again. Liam left my lips kissing down my neck to my soft spot where he would mark me. He started kissing, and sucking, occasionally nipping, and by the time I felt his canines pierce my skin I was a hot moaning mess. Liam licked the wound clean, leaving soft butterfly kisses setting off butterfly zoo in my stomach and sparks spread across my skin. He pulled his head back and I laid my forehead against his and said, "I love you." He pulled back, smiling brightly, and said, "You just gave me the most amazing gift in this whole world, and I love you too every day for the rest of our lives, and even after I will still love you," Liam said and captured my lips once again. I was still straddling him, not really wanting to get up, so instead I curled up on his chest as he laid down, telling me stories about the good times in his life, and somewhere between listening to his voice and his heartbeat I fell asleep. I woke up in bed, being held by two arms I will never get used to or get bored of. I snuggled closer against Liam's chest and his arms automatically tightened. I closed my eyes with a smile on my face, love in my heart and peace in my soul, because I will never be let down or forgotten again. Ch90. Everyone always has their own ideas of the perfect ending and how it should be, but for the Low Valley Kingdom they have their own idea of the perfect ending. Throughout Crystal and Xanian's journey they found the one thing they have always been looking for, and that is to have a family, to be accepted, but most of all to find love, unconditional and unbreakable love. Crystal POV: Xanian, I told you I will not go into labor, I said, sighing for the 100th time today. Well, the babies looks like they want to come out, Xanian said, looking at my stomach with a look of horror on his face. I glared up at him and my anger was very close to the service, which by the way has been for the last few days because of Xanian and Julian. I'm 6 months pregnant, Xanian, which means I can still walk on my own. That is the problem, because it looks like you are about to explode any second, Xanian said, lowering me onto the bed. Everything has been going great, but I can't wait for the babies to come out so that I can have control over my own emotions and have my body back where I can actually see my feet and fit into my clothes. Just get out Zanian and don't come back. I said, turning my back to him, hearing him sigh. He bent down and kissed my forehead and walked towards the door. I groaned out in pain as a cramp took its course. Only this one feels like my stomach is being ripped in half. I did what Jeff said and pulled my knees up as far as I could and hold my breath, but it isn't working and I think I just peed myself. Crystal, what is wrong? I heard Zanian and Julian ask from beside me. I need new clothes, I said, trying to ignore the cramp which is bringing tears to my eyes. I have never experienced a cramp this painful. Zanian put his hand on my forehead which is drenched in sweat. Zanian turned me so that I can lie on my back and picked me up bridal style. You need the hospital, not a clean pair of pants, Zanian said, causing Julian's head to snap in his direction. She is in labor, Zanian said, causing Julian and me to look at him while he has a smirk on his face. I told you, Zanian said, walking out of the bedroom carrying me bridal style with Julian standing like a statue not moving. Holding my babies in my arms are by far the most amazing feeling in the world, although I've done it before, but this feels like the first time all over again. I stared down at my twin boys with tears in my eyes. Now I have everything I have ever wanted. They are beautiful, Dahlia said, standing behind me looking over my shoulder. What are their names? Sandy asked, coming in with a smile on her face and a sparkle in her eyes. I don't know yet, I said, looking at the door as Zanian and Julian came in with huge smiles on their faces. What should we name them? I asked, looking at Julian. How about Hayden and Aiden? Julian said, looking down at the boys, smiling. The boys looks a bit different than the girls, their skins are a bit more paler but not too pale, and they both have the most mesmerizing blue eyes I have ever seen. The only difference is one has white hair and the other has silver hair like mine. They will both have Julian's facial features when they grow up: perfect nose, strong jaw, high cheekbones and a smile that can melt any girl's heart. I looked down at my boys and decided that Aiden would be the one with the white hair and Hayden the one with the silver hair, because the names should fit their personality, and I have an idea that Hayden would be the fierce one, where Aiden would be a lover not a fighter, but he will fight for what he loves. Zanian and Julian both took a baby and I laid down feeling exhausted. We will take them while you rest, Julian said, bending and kissed my lips. He pulled back and Zanian did the same, kissed me, and they both left the room. Sandy and Dahlia was staring at me with so much love that I started crying again, causing both my girls to get onto the bed, sandwiching me in the middle. We are so proud of you, Dahlia said, kissing the top of my head. I looked over at Sandy and smiled. You better not have any ideas until you are at least 18, I said, raising my brow at her, making her blush. I fell asleep with Dahlia and Sandy talking softly while both of them are holding me. Julian POV: when I held my baby for the first time, everything around me faded away and all I could see was him. I never in my life imagined that being a dad could ever make me feel this complete. Zanian and I left the hospital, giving Crystal time to rest. Zanian and I stood by her side until both babies were out and Jeff announced the gender and said that they are perfectly healthy. I am currently standing in the kitchen showing off my babies to everyone. I didn't let anyone hold them and I'm not sure if I want to put him down either. Aiden looked at me with his big blue eyes and smiled. What I did notice and what shocked me was that for a newborn baby he is not supposed to have fangs, yet there are tiny white sharp teeth sticking out of his gums. Is this normal? I asked Zanian, who is standing next to me, looking at Aiden, smiling. How are supposed to know what is normal? This is the first hybrid babies of their kind, Zanian said, sticking his finger in Aiden's mouth, feeling his fangs. Wow, they are sharp, Zanian said, pulling his hand back, looking at his finger which is bleeding a little. I looked down at Aiden and his eyes are no longer blue, but purple, blue, red, green, gold. In a simple explanation, it looks like the galaxy exploded in his eyes. I stared in amazement until his eyes changed back to normal and his smile returned. I asked Xanian to do the same with Hayden and his eyes looked the same as Aiden's. Maybe their eyes tells the story of what they are. I thought to myself as I smile at my babies and Xanian's expression. He looks proud and frightened at the same time. I spent the whole day with the boys and then the night as well watching them sleep, and like me they don't really need sleep, it's just convenient. They woke up a few times just smiling. I love the fact that I can read minds because I can see everything they are thinking even though it's not words, but pretty soon they will be able to form complete sentences. I handed each one a bottle of milk which they didn't want, so I handed them their small blood bottle and watched as their eyes changed. All I could do was stare in amazement and wish my eyes were this beautiful. Both my boys has the royal vampire tattoo infused with the royal fox tattoo. Aren't you coming to bed? Crystal asked, standing at the door at 4 in the morning. She hasn't seen the boys' eyes yet, so I thought I would show her now. I want you to see something amazing, I said and held out my hand for her. She took my hand, walking over to me. Look at them, I said and watched as she turned her head, gasping at the sight, bending down to get a closer look. It's beautiful, she said, stroking their cheeks. Now I know why you like watching them, Crystal said, sitting on my lap. They truly are something special. Crystal said more to herself than me, but I answered anyway. They will be. When they were done drinking and fell off to sleep, Crystal made me leave their room, dragging me to bed. Third-person POV. As the days went by, Julian became more possessive and protective, threatening anyone who even dares to look at the boys wrong or stare too much. Crystal's home for the hybrid children were finally done, and Zara has been collecting more and more babies every day, filling the home, bringing more laughter, joy, and love to a lot of families. The kingdom has also grown and have over 6,000 creatures of every kind. The perfect ending will never be perfect without a wedding, which is exactly what is coming next. Dalia and Crystal has been doing panning and dress hunting for the last month. The only difference with Crystal's wedding is it will be a royal wedding, which means the Pax will be invited. I have no idea what dress to pick, Crystal said, looking between a satin dress with a tail and a cream dress that will reach the floor. Dalia looked at her and moved her head to the side, and her eyes landed on the most beautiful dress. How about that one? Dalia asked, pointing towards a white and purple dress with a black outline and a silver chest area. As the girls walked up to the dress, small patterns could be seen all around. This is beautiful, Crystal said, reaching out, touching her hand to the dress, smiling. This will look so beautiful on you, see? Sandy said, joining them in the bridal shop. I will take this one, Crystal said, taking it off, walking off to pay for it. The cashier lady looked at them with narrowed eyes and said, this dress is very expensive, are you sure you want to buy it? What is that supposed to mean? Crystal asked, laying the dress on the counter. Why not rent it and bring it back when you are done? The lady said, and the worst thing is she is a wolf. Crystal smiled at her and said, I will like to buy this dress, please. And she handed the lady a gold credit card. The lady took the card and swiped it, grabbing the dress, and went off to have it boxed. When she came back half an hour later, Crystal was annoyed. Are you this rude to all your customers? Crystal asked, glaring at the woman. Only the ones who thinks they are better than everyone else, the lady said, handing Crystal the box. Crystal released her aura, allowing her eyes to change, and looked at the lady as her eyes widen. She tried holding Crystal's gaze, but her wolf must have taken over and bowed down, for when she lifted her head her eyes were a yellowish green. I'm so sorry, my queen, the wolf said, and exposed her neck. Crystal pulled back her aura, saying, it's not your fault. And then she left the store with Sandy and Dalia, smiling proudly. When Crystal and them got home they saw the jumping castles and slip and slides were out and kids were screaming, laughing, and having fun. As she made her way past everyone she went to change and join the fun. "Took you long enough," Julian said walking into the room with both babies in his arms. Crystal walked over and kissed all three of them. "Time is always the enemy, if you are having fun there isn't enough time, if you are sad time feels endless and when you have everything you ever wanted time feels like it's running away." Ch 91. Crystal POV. Everything is perfect, I couldn't have asked for better. As I lay in bed watching Julian and Zainian sleeping I wish I could freeze time and on the other hand I don't want to because who wants to live the exact same day over and over again? I have invitations to send out and a wedding to plan. I thought as I flipped the covers off me causing Zainian and Julian to groan in disapproval. "Just one day?" Zainian complained pulling the covers closer. "No, we have work to do," I said causing Julian to snap his eyes open and pull me beneath him and pinned me down. "You are up early every day, just one day for rest please," Julian asked in a pleading voice. "I'm a mom and queen and now I'm going to be a wife in a few days," I said tracing Julian's jaw with my fingers. He leaned down and kissed me knocking the wind out of me with his slow passionate kissing so early in the morning. Our bedroom door burst open and two pairs of small feet ran towards the bed. Okay, well, not so small anymore. Hazel and Isabella got up onto the bed and started jumping causing Zainian to groan and tackle them both. Julian got off me allowing me to escape. "Mommy, where are you going?" Isabella asked with a pout. "To get your brothers," I said and left the room. Hayden and Aiden has been a dream, no crying no screaming just the occasional fuss about now wanting milk. I have no idea what to make of the boys because they are growing rapidly fast so Julian explained to me some of the things about being a vampire and one of them is the rapid growing. By the time they are 5 in human years they will be teenagers in vampire years and I am so not looking forward to having them grow up so fast. They are only a few days old and already they have teeth so by the time they are 1 they will be toddlers. I opened the door to their room and found both of them awake smiling. Julian said their fangs will pull into their gums when they are a bit older and have more control so for now it's permanently on display which I think is the cutest thing in the world. I walked closer to the crib and handed each one a bottle of milk seeing that they haven't actually had milk in 2 days. As far as we know they have 2 stomachs and both stomachs needs to be fed regularly. I gave Hayden his bottle but he spit it out and I just glared at him. Aiden did the same, and I swear I didn't mean to but I growled at them causing both of them to look at me with wide eyes. I handed them the bottles again and this time they took it without a fuss. I watched as they drank every drop before spitting the bottles out and I handed them the small blood bottle. I stood watching in amazement as their eyes change and I can honestly stand here the whole day just looking at them. Julian came in just as they let go of the bottles and their eyes change back to their normal mesmerizing blue. "I heard you growl," Julian said standing next to me looking down at the boys. "Yes, because they refused to drink the milk and I didn't mean to, it just happened," I said shrugging my shoulder causing Julian to let out a soft chuckle. I left the boys with Julian and went to take a shower and get dressed in casual clothes. I walked down to the kitchen where Maggie handed me a plate filled with bacon and cheese toast just as I asked. I took my breakfast up to Zainian's office and started working on the invitations. All the packs are invited as well as every member in their pack that allows the unmated wolves to look for their mates. I sent out the invitations and the date is set. Everyone would be arriving today or tomorrow. We have vampires that volunteered to guard the packs for every wolf will be attending the wedding. When that was done I sat and enjoyed my breakfast even though it got cold, but it doesn't matter. I loved what Nellie did for the engagement party so I asked her to help with my wedding as well and I swear she almost jumped out of her skin from excitement. Zainian POV. Being king I always knew would be hard work, but keeping everyone happy is even harder. I haven't told Crystal or Julian this, but we had some friction between two wolves and a vampire just over a week ago, and that is where I am currently to see if we can resolve the problem without having to involve Crystal. So you laid claim on a girl that wasn't yours to claim, and now that she found her mate you refuse to release her? I asked Jody, who is looking everywhere but at me. It's not like that. She claimed me and I told her she has a mate and she has to go, but yet here she is refusing. Jody said, looking at the girl. Many sentences in this chapter have been removed because you are not reading them on JOBNIB. COM. I diverted my attention to her and saw she is only looking at her lap, not making eye contact with anyone. May I ask why you don't want your mate? I asked, waiting for her answer. When she looked at me she had tears in her eyes. I waited for her to speak but she didn't, instead she just looked down. I looked at the men and dismissed them. When they left the door closed and I moved closer to the girl. What is wrong? I asked, and for the first time she made eye contact. I'm scared, she said as a tear rolled down her cheek. Scared of what? I asked. My mate is known for his short temper and I'm afraid of him, the girl said, looking at me with fear evident in her eyes. Okay, how about I speak to him? I asked, not wanting to do anything she won't be comfortable with. She nodded her head and I linked Gavin to come back. I spoke to them and we resolved the problem. As for the vampire, I have no idea what his deal was in all of this, but the two mates are happy now and I have a mate to attend to before she comes looking for me. Julian's babies are the most fascinating babies I have ever seen, and that is apart from the babies Zara keeps brining. Crystal has kept to her word and I honestly don't know how she does it because she is juggling everything at once. 4 kids, being queen, looking after orphans, and then there is us, which she hasn't forgot about once or neglected. When I walked into the house, Nellie was on the phone yelling at someone and Maggie was standing by the stairs talking to Hazel, who is hanging on to every word she is saying by the looks of it, but when she saw me she jumped into my arms. Where have you been? She asked, having the same look Crystal has when she is waiting for an answer. I took a walk, baby. Why, what's wrong? I asked and she just shook her head. Hazel isn't much of a talker. Isabella, on the other hand, can talk non-stop and sometimes it drives me crazy to the core because all she talks about is fashion and being proper. She even corrects me when I'm not proper enough. Good you are here, we have guests arriving today and some tomorrow. Crystal said, walking down the stairs with the boys in her arms. Is it just me or do they look double the size than they were yesterday? I thought as I took a closer look at them. I'm sorry, guests, I said, just realizing what Crystal said. Yes, for the wedding on Saturday. Okay, but it's only Wednesday today, I said, moving my head to the side. Yes, and the packs far out is coming today so that they can rest, as well as Tyler's pack. They are coming today. In total that is 7 packs, and then the rest will be here tomorrow and everyone will rest Friday and the wedding is Saturday. I glared at Crystal for the way she is speaking. It's like she is explaining things to a 10-year-old and not a grown man. Okay, then where do you want them? I asked, which caused Crystal to look at me. Everything is already sorted. And where were you, because you disappeared for almost 4 hours? Crystal said, looking at me through narrowed eyes. I took a walk, I said, looking at Hazel, who is looking at me with a "did you really" look on her face. Later in the evening, after we showered and got dressed, the first packs started arriving. I walked downstairs to welcome them, with Hazel and Isabella following behind me. Hazel refused to leave me alone and Isabella just wants to greet everyone. Maggie and Martha cooked up a storm yet again, leaving no room for error or disappointment. I stood by the door as the packs walked in, greeting the alphas respectfully as they did the same. Ever since Crystal made it clear that respect will be shown, it's like everyone is more afraid of her than me. Which I understand, because even I'm afraid of her. Thank you for welcoming us into your home and congratulations. Alpha Jace said as he handed me a wrapped gift. Crystal said they don't have to bring anything, but I guess some just really can't show up empty-handed. Crystal came down and my breath hitched as I took in the golden gown glimmering under the lights with her hair done up neatly and her makeup done to perfection. I will never get used to how beautiful and graceful she looks when she is full-on queen. When she reached me, she kissed my cheek and smiled warmly. I handed her the gift Jace gave me and told her who it is from. Tyler was the last pack to arrive, and when he did, everyone stopped and stared. He got out of the car and walked over to Crystal, taking her hand and leading her to the car. He opened the trunk and said, "I missed the birth of the newest babies, so this is to make up for that and to say congratulations." Crystal looked up at me with a sparkle in her eyes and motioned for me to come over. Okay, maybe it wasn't such a good idea because now I cannot stop staring and thinking, how in the world did he fit this thing in the car? I mean, it's bigger than the car. Crystal and Tyler started pulling, and right in front of my eyes is a giant teddy bear. And I mean giant. It's like 3 times my size and it's every color you can think of. I had it specially made for you," Tyler said, causing Crystal's smile to widen. "Thank you, T," Crystal said, hugging the teddy bear's arm. The dinner was quiet and no one said much. Everyone kept talking about the teddy bear and even some Lunas asked for one, causing the alphas to groan. Crystal and Julian each sat with a baby on their lap and I have Hazel and Isabella on mine as we all enjoy our dinner. Ch 92. Crystal POV. I woke up with butterflies in my stomach knowing that this time tomorrow I will be getting ready for my wedding. Getting married to not one but 2 men who holds my heart completely as I hold theirs is every girl's fantasy. I jumped out of bed this morning not wanting to waste a second from being part of planning the perfect wedding. I know Nelly said she will take care of everything and I trust her, but I still want to see and be a part of everything. Almost all the packs arrived yesterday, which is making the palace a very crowded place to be in, and I still cannot believe that we had space for everyone. Most wolves has found their mates and some are still hoping. As I said, almost all the packs has arrived except for one. The Greyville Stone pack. They will be arriving today and honestly I don't mind. We kept some rooms open for them which will be on the 2nd floor. I don't know what they expected from me, but all they will get is being treated like any other pack because they chose not to be my family. Even when I needed them they weren't there. Crystal, you have to take a break and just concentrate on you. I have this covered and I can handle it. If I get stuck I will call you," Nelly said, taking the flowers from my hands and shooing me out of the room. Reluctantly I turn around and walk away very slowly, hoping she would call me back, but she didn't. I walk up to our floor and into the kids' bedroom, which is occupied by Zanian and Julian. "Hey boys," I said, walking over to them. "Hey babe," Zanian said, and Julian just smiled. "What have you been up to?" Julian asked, raising a brow at me. I sat down on the carpet and was immediately attacked by Isabella and Hazel. I was chased away from decorating, I said, looking between the 2 guys. "Who is laughing at me? It's not funny," I said, pouting. "Have you heard anything from the Greyville pack?" Zanian asked, and I shook my head. "They said they will be here between 2 and 4, but I honestly don't know, seeing that it is already past 3. I said, shrugging my shoulders. We spent a whole hour with the babies and the girls when we were called down saying the Grevilla pack has arrived. Zanian, Julian and I walked downstairs to welcome them, and my breath caught in my throat when I saw Tony walking up to us with a box in his hand. I don't have to be a genius to know what a wedding dress box looks like. Why would he do this? I asked myself, hearing a growl in my mind. I looked at Zanian, who is staring daggers at Tony as well as Julian. They must have felt my mood change through the mate bond. "What is this?" I asked, trying to keep my emotions at bay. "Mom would have wanted you to have this, so I thought I would bring it," Tony said, to which Natasha huffed and looked away. I am pretty sure she wanted the dress. I don't want it, I said, looking between the five of them. Well, it's here now, Tony said, handing me the box. I took the box and saw Natasha's eyes widen, and then I handed the box to her. You seem like you want it, so here, you can have it, I said, holding the box out to her, which she took almost immediately. She was my biological mother. I heard Natasha mumble under her breath. I looked at her and just smiled, knowing that my dress would be everything she ever dreamed of having. I welcomed them in and explained where their rooms will be. Shouldn't the family of the bride be on the same floor as them? Natasha asked with crossed arms and a disbelieving look on her face. Yes, they are, which is exactly why the only place left is on the second floor, I said, watching her smile drop and her eyes water. But, I cut her off halfway and said, you are not my family and we have cleared all this up weeks ago. Besides, my family is already here and you are all guests, to which you will be treated as such, I said, looking at Natasha, who has tears in her eyes and the rest disbelieving looks on their faces. Tyler came down the stairs, hugging me from behind, laying his head on my shoulder. The babies are sleeping, he said, and kissed my cheek, walking away. Probably to go and get some food. I started walking upstairs with everyone following me, and I showed them their rooms and left to go have a shower and get ready for supper. I dressed in a white sleeveless satin gown that reaches the floor even though I'm in heels. I left my hair loose and put minimal makeup. I stare at myself in the mirror, and even though I am older, I still look like the same 19-year-old girl. I wonder if I will ever change or age, which I doubt, because I am marked by a vampire who never ages. You look absolutely beautiful, Julian said, walking up behind me, staring at me through the mirror. And you look very handsome, I said, turning around, smashing my lips to his, making him chuckle. I'm sorry, Julian said, causing me to look at him, taking a minute to understand what he is apologizing for, or should I say who he is apologizing for. It's not your fault. They should just accept their place in my life and respect it. If not, I will keep making it clear to them until they understand, I said, taking Julian's hand and walking alongside him. We met up with Zanian in the hallway, coming out of the kids' bedroom, closing the door softly. They're finally sleeping, Zanian whispered, too afraid to talk loud. Zanian stood on my right, Julian on my left, and I'm in the middle as we walk down the stairs, receiving smiles and admiring looks. Dinner was served and everyone talked and laughed. It's not like the last time. This time everyone truly seems happy. Zanian asked some questions about how the packs are doing and if they encountered any trouble, but strangely no one has had any trouble. Natasha and Roland keeps looking at me, and from what I could hear, Roland at least has his wolf back, but his wolf is rejecting Natasha as his mate, which is causing them to drift apart. I feel sorry for them because they have gone through so much to be together, and now his wolf is rejecting their bond in hopes of finding a second chance mate. Hey, your food is getting cold, Zanian said from beside me, pulling me out of my daydreaming. I looked at him with a soft smile on my face and diverted my attention back to my food. Maggie has gone all out again and my plate is filled with everything delicious, especially het creamy potato bake. Dinner ended sooner than we thought. Some excused themselves and some stayed behind to talk a little more. As for us, well, I excused myself, making my way up to our room. As I reached the second floor, I hear screaming from Roland and Natasha's room and decided to see if everything is okay. You cannot do this, Natasha cried. I can and I will, because I can't keep pretending to love you when I don't. I lost my first mate, Natasha, and I will not lose a second one to stay with you, Roland said, causing me to freeze in my tracks. We have been together since we were 16 and that is 7 years down the line, Roland, Natasha said, and I can imagine the look on her face. Our bond is broken due to my wolf's rejection, which means you are no longer my mate, nor are you my Luna. Roland said, and I suddenly have the urge to knock on the door, but I didn't. Instead I walked away until I heard something break and turned back, knocking on the door. Roland opened the door looking tired, but when he saw me he straightened up and greeted formally. "Good even, Queen Crystal. Is everything all right?" Roland asked, and I almost laughed at his pretense. "What is going on here?" I asked, causing Roland to sigh and open the door, showing me the room and Natasha laying a pool of glass. I walked in and asked, "What is going on here?" Natasha jumped to her feet looking down. Roland closed the door and said, "I'm sure you know already, otherwise you wouldn't be here." I heard the screaming. "Yes, that doesn't explain the glass," I said, looking between the two of them. "He rejected me." Natasha sobbed like the drama queen she is. "Well, you weren't his to begin with, and as for what I know, you have been having problems for a while now," I said, looking between the two of them. "I found my second mate and she is here somewhere. I smelled her when I walked up the stairs, and tomorrow I'm going to look for her because I have already lost one mate. I will not lose another," Roland said, looking at Crystal, who is full on sobbing. "I hate you," Natasha said, to no one in particular, but I have a feeling it's directed at me as well. "Well then, hate me," Roland said, looking between me and Natasha. "Do you have any other open room maybe?" Roland asked, scratching the back of his neck. "Yes, 3 doors down," I said, dancing like crazy internally. "It hurts being rejected by someone you love," I thought to myself as I looked at Natasha. "Please don't break anything else or you will be held responsible for the damage done," I said, and walked out of the room. Maybe now, with Natasha out of the way and a real mate, Roland would be a better alpha and an even better friend. I knocked on Roland's door and he answered immediately. "I'm truly happy for you, you deserve better, and maybe now when you have your true mate your alpha duties and abilities will pick up," I said, smiling at him, realizing the smile isn't forced or fake. "Thank you, see, and I just want to say, I'm really sorry about what we've done, and you have every right to hate me, because even I hate me, and there isn't a day that goes by when I don't think about what we did." I looked at Roland, and for the first time I can honestly say, I'm not angry or hateful towards you. I was different and that scared you, and I know that now. So don't blame yourself. And if it wasn't for what you did, I would have probably never found who I really am," I said, seeing a ghost of a smile on his face. "When you find your mate tomorrow, be honest with her and give her a choice. When she chooses you and I ever find out that you hurt her in any way, I will hurt you really, really bad," I said, watching him gulp in fear. "Good night, Alpha Roland," I said, and walked away. I walked into the room just as Zanian and Julian climbed into bed. "Where were you?" Zanian asked. "I stopped by Roland and Natasha's room, which is now just Natasha's room, and Roland is 3 doors down." Julian lifted a brow and I let out the laugh I was holding in for so long. Zanian and Julian looked at me like I have gone crazy, but neither said anything. Ch 93. Third person's POV. What are you thinking about? Julian asked Zanian, who is staring in the mirror lost in thought with a soft smile on his face. Have you ever in your life thought that you would be here today, being a father, getting married to the most beautiful and powerful woman? Zanian asked, staring at Julian through the mirror. Well, if you asked me this particular question 4 years ago, I would have laughed in your face, because I could never see myself settling down, let alone have kids. Julian said with a faraway look in his eyes. Would you change anything if you had the chance? Zanian asked, turning to look at Julian. It took Julian a few seconds, and after his silence he smiled and shook his head. I would never change a thing, because if I change something then I might never have the chance to meet you or Crystal, so my answer is no. I would never change a thing, Julian said. As Zanian and Julian get ready for breakfast, small talk is the only thing keeping the nerves bearable. Zanian leaves the room hoping he'll run into Crystal because she has been missing in action since they woke up this morning and haven't seen her once. As Zanian walks down the hallway he spots Dalia instead, so he stops her and asks, "Have you seen Crystal?" "Yes, I have, and you cannot see her until the wedding," Dalia said and walked into the kids' room. "And why can I not see her?" Zanian asked, following behind her. "Because it's bad luck, even if it is a human saying I believe it," Dalia said, walking out with a diaper bag for the boys. "Only you d," Zanian said, walking down the stairs to have a nice breakfast, which was interrupted as soon as he walked into the dining hall. More tables have been brought in and everything is decorated in white, gold, purple and blue. And everywhere I look is flowers. Zanian stared in amazement and smiled. "This looks beautiful, Nelly," Zanian said and walked off to the kitchen, where Maggie handed me a plate of food and said that this is the best she could do. I looked at the plate and it's filled with cheese toast and bacon, which is Crystal's favorite breakfast. Zanian smiled and thanked her and walked off to find a quiet place to eat. When Julian came downstairs he had to stop and take everything in. So many changes, he muttered under his breath, walking towards the door. He has decided that a good old-fashioned hunt would be the best thing to relieve his nerves and have some space to breathe. "Crystal POV, do I really need all this?" I asked again. "I have been sitting down for the last 3 hours getting my nails done, having a massage, and next stop is my hair. I mean, I love Dalia, but she has been keeping me from seeing Zanian and Julian this whole morning." "Yes, you do. This isn't just some event, see, this is your wedding and you only do this once, so it has to be perfect," Dalia said with a soft look in her eyes. "The way it looks for me, she is more excited about this wedding than I am, and don't get me wrong, I am very excited, I just don't show it because then my nerves would show as well and I might have a breakdown. This is the day every young girl ever dreams of having, and it has to be perfect as mine will be. Even if I get married in a black bag, it doesn't matter, because what matters is I am getting married to the guys I love, and that is what keeps me going through this insanely long beauty treatments." "How long is this going to take?" I asked again, fearing that I might be late to my own wedding. "We are done now, we will do your hair," Dalia said, and I must say my body feels amazing, like I just woke up from an 8-hour sleep after being awake for days. As I sat there staring at myself in the mirror, I can barely recognize myself. My skin looks like it's glowing and it looks like it would feel like satin. To test my theory, I ran my hand over my arm and smiled when I felt like satin under my tuff. I really have to find out what oil they used on my skin. Dalia and Sandy were busy trying to decide what to do with my hair and settled for a plait twisted in the form of a rose with a few loose strands hanging down my neck and ears. Dalia took a few purple and gold strings and weaved it through the rose, which makes it stand out even more, and I'm considering getting purple highlights, seeing as it looks amazing. When they were done with my hair, it was time for my makeup, and it truly feels like I'm in a beauty salon getting ready for a red carpet function instead of a wedding. If it were up to me, I would have just done the basic beauty things, because I mean, the guys have seen me wake up in the morning and they didn't run for the heels, so what does it matter what I look like today? "And we are almost done," Dalia said, putting something on my lips which tastes like strawberry chocolate. I swiped my tongue over my bottom lip and got scolding from Dalia. "It's not for eating, doesn't matter how good it smells or tastes." Dalia turned the chair back so that I'm facing the mirror, and when I opened my eyes I gasped at my own reflection. All my colors are gold and purple with a hint of silver, almost like my dress. "This looks amazing," I said, admiring myself a little more. I turned my face every which way and couldn't stop looking. "Okay, now it's time for the dress or you will be late," Sandy said, walking out with my dress draped across her arm, holding it up in the other hand. I got up from the chair and took off the robe I was wearing, and immediately I could feel my nerves spiking and my breathing becoming uneven. "Hey, it's okay to be nervous," Dalia said from beside me with her hand on my shoulder. I know, and I'm also excited, I said, smiling at Delia and Sandy. After I put the dress on, Delia helped with my shoes. I stood there trying my best not to cry, but seems like my tears had other ideas, and luckily my makeup is waterproof or Delia might have just scolded me again. Delia and Sandy took a few steps back and looked at me. You are by far the most beautiful bride we have ever seen, Delia said, and Sandy was just staring with tears in her eyes, which caused me to tear up again. You guys are the best, I said, holding my arms open for a hug. Ah, 3 more things, Delia said, walking to the bed and back to me with 3 small boxes in her hands. She handed me one box and said, something new. I opened the box and found a silver and gold diamond necklace with matching earrings. Sandy helped me put it on. Something borrowed, Delia said, and handed me another small box with a bracelet that looks really, really old. Whose is this? I asked, staring at the bracelet. It was my grandmother's, whose mother gave it to her on her wedding day as something old, which I am now giving you as something borrowed. I stared at Delia and then watched as Sandy secured it around my wrist. And now for something blue, Delia said, handing me the last small box in her hand. I opened the lid and gasped at the blue sapphire stone attached to a hairpin. Delia took the pin from the box and took the loose strand hanging down my face and pinned it to the side of my head. Now we are done, Delia said, and this time she had tears in her eyes. There was a knock on the door and I looked out the window, seeing the sun is high in the sky, which means it almost 3 o'clock. Sandy opened the door and Nellie came in and froze when she saw me. I swear if everyone keeps crying I will start crying though, as Nellie walked closer to me, taking my hands in hers. You look absolutely beautiful, Nellie said, smiling through her tears. Thank you, I said, smiling back. Nellie handed me a bouquet of flowers and said, it's time. Where is Tyler? I asked, causing everyone to look at me. I will go call him, Sandy said, seeming to be the only one with a functioning brain. I followed Nellie and Delia out of the room and waited in the hallway. I forgot to tell you, but Delia snatched me and hid me in her house this morning, since the actual wedding will be held in the yard and not the palace, and where we exit it's basically 4 steps to the aisle. They're here, Nellie said, and left to start the wedding music. Tyler came in and smiled his biggest smile at me. I thought you would never ask, he said, taking my hand and placing it in the crook of his elbow. I smiled up at him, and even in 6-inch heels he is still taller than me. When we round the corner the music started and I took a deep breath. Tyler smiled down at me and said, ready? I nodded my head and we took the first step as the music started playing and everyone stood up. There is over 10,000 wolves here today, and now all eyes are on me as I walk down the aisle, red rose petals covering the path like a red carpet, just with a better smell. I looked left and right and smiled at everyone before I looked in front of me, seeing my 2 gorgeous men dressed in white tuxes and the royal mantles around them pooling at their feet and golden crowns resting on their heads perfectly. They have smiles so wide it looks like it might hurt, and so much love in their eyes that I feel tears pooling in my eyes again. Tyler left me at the bottom step and kissed my cheek before walking away, taking his place next to where Zanian and Julian stands. Zanian and Julian held out their hands for me, which I took, never leaving their eyes. We stood opposite each other and I was asked to bend down a little so my crown could be put on. The preacher came to the part where we could repeat after him or give our own vows. I chose to have our own vows, and I just hope I wouldn't forget mine halfway. Crystal, where to begin? I asked with a soft sigh, causing everyone to chuckle. I looked up Zanian and Julian and said, the day I found I have another mate I was scared, but also determined. I have lost and I have gained. I felt love and I gave love, but the day I met Zanian I felt like I have in fact never known love, and you showed me what love is and even challenged me to the limit of giving up, but I didn't because I knew we could fix each other and that we can learn from who we were and grow to who we are meant to be. And I would never change a thing because I have learned from you what no one else could have ever taught me, and that is what love truly is and how it feels like to be loved. I will be the best mother, wife, and queen that I can possibly be. Always be fair, always be forgiving, and always be truthful. I took a breath and looked at Julian, who is smiling, trying to hide his tears. Now this is a complicated story, but a beautiful one, I said, not breaking eye contact. Since the first night we met I knew you were different. There was just that something about you that made me want you even more, even though you weren't mine at the time. Julian chuckled, looking at me through teary eyes. I have never imagined finding another mate, let alone have two, and my only regret is not finding you sooner to love you longer, but from this day on I make a vow in front of thousands of people to always love you, respect you, and get on your nerves occasionally. Everyone burst out laughing, even Zanian and Julian. I have never felt so complete as I do today, and this is my promise to you. If you love me from today and every day after, I would treat you like the king you are and will be. Zanian, so I can tell you how stubborn and obnoxious you are sometimes, but I'm not going to, because I love that about you. I love the fact that you don't just say yes and amen to everything I say or do. I love the fact that you sometimes challenge my decisions and come up with better ones, even if it does hurt my ego. The day I found I have you as my mate I was beyond terrified, because I knew the moment I saw you I would do anything to keep you safe, even if that meant driving you away, which I did and almost died in the process, but that was okay because I knew you would be safe. And then our lives took a turn neither of us expected, and instead of driving you away I decided to keep you close, and even that wasn't enough because I feared that you would never forgive me for what I have done. All my missing pieces begun fitting perfectly the day I met you, and I think that is what scared me most, because you could fix me where I couldn't even fix myself. You showed me what it's like to love and be loved without conditions, without lies, and most of all without holding back. Crystalia vulpus stone, I didn't just fall head over heels for you, I fell completely in love with you, and I will love you even if you feed me disgusting sandwiches or threaten to kill me, because I cannot imagine my life without you. By the end of Zanian's vows I was full on crying, and the tears just doesn't want to stop. I looked at them and the love in my heart will never fade, nor will it stop. You may now kiss the bride, the preacher said, and for a second we hesitated because how do you choose who to kiss first? So I threw my hands around both my guys, kissing their cheeks, and in return they kiss mine. We will make up the kissing tonight. Both Julian and Zanian whispered into my ears, making goosebumps spread over my entire body, causing me to shiver. Everything was perfect. Howls ripped through the night sky as a life of pain turned into a life of love, friendship, and most of all family. We were all created in different ways, and that difference is what makes us unique. It is what sets us apart from being normal. It is what makes us extraordinary.